Hello and welcome to this channel. They built a global empire on the life savings of over 5,000 people. From high-tech, multilingual call centers hidden across Africa, they ran a sophisticated web of scams that netted them millions. They laundered their fortune through digital assets, thinking they were untraceable ghosts in the machine. Their victims were left heartbroken and financially ruined. For a while, they operated with total impunity, their criminal enterprise spanning 7 countries. But they never counted on law enforcement coordinating on a scale as massive as their own. They never counted on Interpol's Operation Red Card. This is the story of how a house of cards, built on lies, came crashing down. They say crime doesn't pay, but for this crew, it paid big and it paid fast. Let me tell you how they did it. First, they created a whole portfolio of scams, kind of like a bad guy's buffet. Some victims got a call saying they'd won a prize. All they had to do was confirm their details. Others got a message from someone they knew, begging for money in an emergency. But the favorite one was posing as customer support from popular tech companies. They'd convince people their accounts were at risk and needed urgent attention. Then they'd guide the victims through steps that seemed legit, but siphon money away without a trace. Once the money was gone, the contact disappeared, leaving the victims holding the bag. But the masterminds weren't sitting at a table piling up cash. They'd moved their operations to a different level. They used fancy software to automate the scams, sending out thousands of messages at once and collecting the data to see what worked best. They created a whole infrastructure of websites that looked like banks or tech companies, tricking people into logging in and handing over their credentials. And when it came to managing all this illicit money, they went high-tech. They used cryptocurrencies, specifically digital assets that were hard to track, moving the money around and hiding it in places that looked like investments, only they weren't. It sounds like a movie plot, right? Well, this was real life. And as the years went by, the number of victims kept growing. In 2024 alone, the criminals pocketed $7.2 million in crypto. That's like 720 grand every month. Imagine the lives they wrecked, the dreams they crushed, the trust they eroded. People lost their homes, their savings, and sometimes even took their own lives. Now let's talk about the masterminds. We don't know much about them because they were good at what they did. They hid their faces online, used code names, and bounced around countries faster than you could say scam. They always stayed one step ahead until they didn't. As the number of cases grew, so did the pressure on law enforcement. They had to figure out how to connect the dots, how all these crimes were related, and who was pulling the strings. The victims were scattered around the world, mostly in Europe and North America. The criminals, mostly in Africa, Nigeria, South Africa, Zambia, and Rwanda. And in the middle was the internet, a tool that allowed them to communicate and operate with near impunity. The solution didn't come from one country or one agency. It came from an international team, the International Criminal Police Organization, better known as Interpol. This group connects law enforcement agencies from almost every country in the world. They've tackled everything from drug trafficking to terrorism, and they knew they had to join forces to take down these scammers. Their plan was called Operation Red Card, and it involved 7 African countries. In Nigeria, where many of the scammers were based, they teamed up with a local unit called the Special Fraud Unit. In South Africa, they joined forces with the Hawks, a specialized police unit. And in Rwanda, Zambia, and other countries, they worked with the national police. But they also realized they couldn't do it alone. They needed help from the best in the business, the private sector. So they reached out to cybersecurity companies like Group IB, Kaspersky, and Trend Micro. These companies had the tools and expertise to track the digital trail left by the scammers. The first step was gathering intelligence, tracking the money, following the signals, and putting together the bigger picture. It was a bit like solving a jigsaw puzzle, except the pieces were scattered across borders and the picture was constantly changing. But slowly they started to see patterns, connections, and key players. They found call centers in Nigeria buzzing with activity, each with a different scam story. They uncovered SIM box frauds in South Africa, where regular phones were being used to make international calls look local. They identified malware distributors in Zambia, sending out vicious text messages. And they tracked money launderers hiding digital assets, thinking they were untraceable. With the intelligence in hand, the next step was planning. It was a tricky balancing act, keeping the operation secret long enough to catch everyone off guard. They needed to coordinate raids across 7 countries, hitting the scammers where they least expected it. And they had to move fast because the criminals were always one step ahead. Then came the moment of truth, November 2024. Early in the morning, teams of officers fanned out across the 7 countries. In Nigeria, they stormed several buildings in Lagos, the bustling commercial hub. Inside, they found rows of computers, dozens of workers, and enough evidence to link them to hundreds of scams. In South Africa, they shut down a major SIM box operation in a raid that also recovered dozens of computers and mobile phones. In Rwanda, they broke up a social engineering ring that had tricked countless victims into giving up their life savings. The operation was a stunning success. They arrested 306 suspects and seized 1,842 electronic devices. They shut down call centers, blocked malware distribution, and cut off money laundering operations. But the impact went beyond the numbers. It sent a clear message that cybercrime wouldn't be tolerated and that criminals wouldn't find sanctuary anywhere. In the days since Operation Red Card, the fight has continued. The 306 suspects are facing prosecution, the proceeds of crime are being recovered, and efforts are underway to help the victims rebuild their lives. It's a reminder that while technology can be used to commit crimes, it can also be used to catch criminals. It's a testament to the power of cooperation, bringing together law enforcement, governments, and the private sector to tackle a common threat. But maybe the most important lesson is this: as technology evolves, so will the threats we face. We have to stay vigilant, keep learning, and keep adapting our strategies to stay one step ahead of the criminals. And now here's a question for you. What's the biggest challenge you think law enforcement faces in fighting cybercrime? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and let's have a conversation. And if you want to learn more about Operation Red Card or other investigations, subscribe and hit that notification bell. You'll be the first to know when we drop a new video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.